he delivered the mail.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my dad.
Yes.
Yes. Well, of course, my dad had a lot of brothers. One was Uncle Henry, who ran the hardware and farm appliance on Niagara Road, and another brother was David, and he had a grocery store in Burkles, right on Niagara Road. And my dad used to deliver with a horse and wagon. This is before my time, but he told me this. He used to deliver groceries with the horse and wagon, and he also delivered mail.
Wow.
That was those days. I guess anybody could deliver mail. I don't know, but he did deliver mail on the horse and buggy.
Jeez.
But then my father's other brother, one of his brothers, was George Heuer. He ran the Burkles Fire Company restaurant, which is, of course, recently it was a meeting place, but originally the Burkles Fire Company ran the restaurant downstairs. And I can remember when he used to make clam chowder, and I'd watch them when they were killing the clams out in the parking lot.
Jeez.
But my Uncle Dave, of course, when his business got a little bigger, he decided to move to Niagara Falls. And he had a grocery store, meat market on 3rd Street in Niagara Falls. And a lot of people in Niagara Falls remember going there. He had a good meat market there. And he used to make, he had 2 sons, Louis and Elmer. And Elmer used to make all the meatloafs, different kinds of meatloafs that they'd sell in their delicatessen part. And of course they made their own sausage. So it was kind of interesting. I used to go there with my dad when I was a little kid yet. My Uncle Dave always says, "Well, what do you want to eat here?" Well, slice some kind of cold cuts off, make me a sandwich, and that was always something I looked forward to.
Because they were family too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going to somebody else's house for a bit, having a treat,
Yeah. And then my dad had another brother, Louis, who went into the ministry. So he was a minister in Columbus, Ohio, and mostly that's where he graduated from the college there. And who did I forget now? There was another brother that he wasn't into any business or anything. So, but that was growing up. It was always fun. And when I was going to Niagara, there was no Niagara Wheatfield High School, and so I ended up going to LaSalle Junior High and then Gaskell Junior High, and then I went to Niagara Falls High School. I graduated from Niagara Falls High School. And there, trying to think about what I was gonna say something about that. I can't remember now.
You want to remember for
summer, I know.
Okay.
When I was going to high school,
Mm-hmm.
Summer vacation, Frankie Kamen, who lived on Niagara Road in Burkles, he and I used to ride our bicycles to Sanborn, Chet Hasley, who was married to my cousin Lillian Heuer. He had a big fruit farm and vegetable farm. So we used to go there in the summertime, pick apples and other fruits. And then, of course, when later he got a lot of vegetables, we helped harvest cauliflower and all different kinds of vegetables. And when the weather was bad, we couldn't ride the bike. It was raining or something. Well, we'd try and get somebody to, we'd hitchhike there, or we got there somehow anyways. And,
wow. Yeah. When you could still hitchhike.
Huh?
When you could still hitchhike with somebody, kind of.
Everybody hitchhiked. Everybody would pick you up too. I mean, there was no problem. If they knew you, they'd pick you up. And you knew most of the people anyways. There weren't that many people. And then that same summer, over on Dole's Hill, it was called Demler's farm, I guess. It was, we used to go there and pick tomatoes. We'd ride our bike up the lane from Jago Road out to Dole's Hill, and then we'd pick tomatoes there. We got paid, I don't know, was it 25 cents for a basket of tomatoes for picking them.
And where was this exactly? Where was this
Dole's
farm?
Hill?
Yeah.
It was actually, Demler's had Demler had a cider mill.
Oh, yeah.
Right there on River Road.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back between the cider mill and Dole's Hill, which is a hill back there off of halfway between Jago Road and River Road. That's what they called it, Dole's Hill. There weren't, it was a hill. And I think over the years that they did haul a lot of dirt out of there and remove that.
It might have been developed now into a some kind of a development there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
on Doe's Hill. I mean, Justin is too young to understand Doe's Hill. You have to be, well, my kids' age would know Doe's Hill because a lot of kids used to take ATVs and go down there.
Yeah, and it does appear in some older photos, but I don't see it now,
Yeah.
which means they might have taken it down. You may have leveled it at some
I don't know
point,
what they did,
maybe.
but I thought they may have. I thought there was a new development there. I could be wrong.
No, there's no development there.
There's no development
Right where the
there?
hill was, no, it's still there.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
The land is, I don't know if there's if it's being used for anything at all. But everybody knew where Dole's Hill was.
So eventually, as you said, you went to school. Of course, what school did you go to again? Or did you
Niagara Falls High School.
Niagara Falls High School. Okay,
yeah. And then after I graduated, I said, well, I think I'm going to see if I can find a job. So I guess half of Berkeley's worked at General Basic. Because Eric Walk was the superintendent. Eric Walk was Winston Muller's father-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, he did all the hiring. If you needed a job. And he always put the people he hired, he put them in maintenance. Because he knew the people growing up in Berkeley, the German people, were good at a lot of trades. So I got a job there in the maintenance. And I worked there basically, I started out with a millwright helper, then I became a sheet metal tinsmith, and I was going to night school up in Buffalo, Erie County Technical Institute, which is prior to Erie Community College. It was called Erie County Technical, ECTI. And so I was going there at night. And for a while, Dennis Demeter was going up there with me too. But then he dropped out, I think. But I took a lot of drafting engineering courses up there, and then the plant engineer, his name was Donald Sedlak, and he worked over in the main office, and he come through and I talked to him different times, and then he saw I was doing a lot of layout work for the sheet metal department. So he says, how would you like to come over and do some drafting over in the main office? Oh, that sounds like might be a good thing to do. And I was still going to night school then yet. And in fact, I took a couple courses at Trot night school in drafting, and so I got my foot in the door in the engineering department, and I guess I kind of worked my boss, Don Selleck, went into the superintendent of production, and he kind of left the engineering department, so I was left there all by myself. Then I did hire another draftsman to do some of the drafting work. So that was kind of an interesting time. At that time, we were no longer General Abrasive. We were Dresser Industries.
So
they bought General Abrasive.
Oh, okay. So it went from General Abrasive to, yeah. Okay.
It was, and after Dresser Industries, of course, they sold to Abrasive Industries, which was in Florida. It was just a holding company, but it wasn't a very good experience with them. But then a German company from Austria bought, and we had a good relationship with them. So I ended up being in charge of the engineering department. I was plant engineer. I was president of the Niagara Frontier Plant Engineer Society. I got into that society because of my job, and got to meet a lot of good people. So,
at what point did you enter the Navy?
Well, actually, I went right into the Naval Air Reserves after I graduated.
Okay.
And I was, I think I must have been 18 years old, I think, when I joined over in Porter Road, where the Naval Air Station was. Mm-hmm. And a couple of my buddies said, "Oh, we're going to join over there. Why don't you come join with us?" So I did, and I actually spent, I guess, over 12 years in the Naval Air Reserve. And we used to go every summer for 2 weeks. We'd be activated we'd go someplace in the country, going out of Florida or out to state of Washington one year. That we had a lot of fun
Was this
going in the Naval Air Reserve.
and was this and when you were in uniform? What years would that have been during the?
Oh, I was in uniform from let's see, 50 to 62.
Mm-hmm.
It was the Korean War, and they were going to activate our squadron a couple of times. They did activate one of the squadrons over there at the air base during the war, but we were never activated.
Mm-hmm.
We'd spend every summer we'd go be activated for 2 years, 2 weeks. And,
Oh, shut the door.
Yeah, sounds like they're doing some work. I'll just close this. Thank you. Yeah. Yard work, everybody. So just checking here. Yeah. So, yeah. You are pretty much at every Memorial Day service
yeah.
and every Veterans Day service, I think. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. You're one of the faces in the crowd I usually notice. So, and thank you for standing for your anthem in the Navy. And again, and so you served intermittently, right? You were kind of in and out of that.
Well,
working at the same time.
Actually, we went there every in the weekends, every month. We would go for a weekend, Saturday and Sunday, over to the base. So they were basically continuous service. And then, of course, in the summertime, we'd always be activated for, with our whole squadron, we'd fly someplace. And I remember one time, I'll never forget, we were flying down to, I believe it was Norfolk, Virginia. And we were supposed to land near Washington, D.C., in one of the airports there. And it was evening. We got there. And it was very foggy. I couldn't find the airport. In those days, I guess they didn't have all the electronic equipment that they do nowadays to find where they're going, so then the pilot, we were riding in the back of this plane, and the pilot called back to us. He says, well, we were having trouble locating the airport, and unfortunately we're getting low on gas, so we may have to, if we can't find it in time, you may have to bail out. So put on your parachutes. Well, we used to pack our own parachutes. And I said, put your parachutes on, and if we can't find it, we're going to have to bail out. None of us had ever bailed out.
God. But they had to warn you.
All of a sudden, the pilot, our captain, said, I think we have the airport. I think we're going to be able to make it. So we did land, but it was kind of scary there for a while.
Mm-hmm. Oof. So once you describe the period between your work and your service, and when you started going into public service?
Well, I was very active in the Wheatfield JCs. I was one charter member. I served as president, vice president, held all the offices.
This is the Junior Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, Junior Chamber of Commerce. But the JCs were kind of a community involved. We used to have run all kinds of competitions in the pass, punt, and kick. It was one of our great ones. But Winston Moeller was town clerk, and he kept talking to me. Why don't we gonna get you involved in politics? So I said, well, when you're 35, you can no longer belong to the JCs. I mean, you can belong, but they called you an exhausted rooster. We even got a pin that said exhausted rooster on it. But we were still attending meetings and helping the guys, but we couldn't be an active member anymore.
You also helped out young people with entrepreneurial ambitions and
so
scholarships, I think, too.
When I decided, well, first of all, Winston got me to join the St. John's River Fire Company. And I got my 50-year pin or 50-year watch 2 years ago with the St. John's River Fire Company.
Wonderful.
And so after we got involved with the fire company, I was, in fact, the second year I was in there, I was elected vice president of the fire company. And I served as vice president for many years there. But during that time, I decided, well, there was an opening for councilman. And he talked me into running, and I won. No, I'm sorry. The first time I ran, I lost. And my dad, of course, was Democrat all his life. And it was funny that when the election came around, years ago, the politicians didn't go door to door because, they knew everybody pretty much. And you didn't have to do any politicking. But I found out from another member of the Berkeley Fire Company, my dad went and bought a couple of cases of beer for the meeting before the election, and he was kind of promoting my election. So that was kind of a surprise to me because he was always, a registered Democrat all his life. That's just, I think the rest of his brothers were too, probably.
And you were running as a Republican.
Huh?
And you were running as a Republican at the time, right?
They were, yeah. But I joined the Republican Club when it first started getting active. We used to have a picnic, different locations. There was Teals Grove on Shawnee Road. I can remember having our annual club picnic there, and it poured, cats and dogs, and it was like a river walking through there, tent. So everybody picked everything up, and we went over to the roller rink on Ward Road.
Oh, yeah, okay.
There used to be a roller rink, now it's apartments.
House, yeah.
Uncle Bill's roller rink. We went in there and finished cooking the hot dogs and hamburgers outside and had our picnic in there. So that was a real washout.
What a way to start, huh?
Yeah, that was one of the first ones when they're active. And we called it the Wheatfield Young Republican Club. And we were mostly younger people, you know. We had some older folks with us, but not that much. So it was got to be quite active group.
And then you happened to slip into to the next election, right? You were
Right. And the second time I ran, I did get. That was when I got elected for 3 years. That was when Mark Demeter decided not to run for re-election. So I was.
Are you telling him about the town picnic?
Well, the town picnic. This is.
It's
This year is
Right,
our
right.
42nd
right.
Wheatfield Town Picnic. I guess you probably know. And it's actually should have been the 44th, but there was no picnic during COVID.
Right.
And
It was a bicentennial thing originally, wasn't it?
yeah, when we first started that, the JCs started this in Oppenheim Park.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to have just some sort of a picnic, which it wasn't too well organized, but we thought it'd be good to have a town of Wheatfield picnic. And it wasn't really called that, but eventually it became the Wheatfield Town Picnic. And that was in Oppenheim Park.
Originally, yeah.
And
Was that before Fairmount Park was developed?
Yeah.
Later? Okay.
Yeah, Fairmount Park was not there yet, because it was an abandoned cemetery,
Mm-hmm.
as you well know. And can you get that?
Yeah, sure.
Call from High Park. Call from.
No, you got a lot of scams.
Yeah, I think I got another one earlier today. Actually, last night I got a call, or this morning I got a call from a guy, and he says, "Is this Amanda?" And I said in response, "No, this is not Amanda. Hug and kiss. Have a nice day." You got to have some fun with this stuff because there's just so much of it now. What was it like working at the second town hall, the older town hall with Stan Brzezinski, and what was it like working in that building when on the boulevard there?
I can remember when I had served my first term there, and I was the only Republican on there. We had a town hall meeting, in the auditorium, and Stan Brzezinski says, I want to have executive session. A couple things we want to discuss. So we all went into the room in the back behind the auditorium. And what he brought up was that he thought it would be good for the town board to have a tax, sales tax or what, some sort of tax on the town budget. It wasn't going to be a lot, maybe 50 cents per thousand or something, and there was nothing really that expensive. So he said, I think it'd be good to build up our kitty, because it was before sales tax, or it was just the beginning of, near the beginning of the sales tax. I can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so he says, how would you feel about it? I said, well, I'm only one vote here, but if you bring it up at a town board meeting, I'm going to vote against it. He looked at me. Okay. And it was never brought up in a town board meeting. He didn't want one person to vote against it.
Like you know, just testing the waters, right, to see what it would.
Yeah.
Now you were there at the time that certain things happened, like the Summit Mall and all that. When when that was coming down, was there some back and forth about that? Whether you know some good, you know, some comments one way or the other about that.
Well, I thought most people thought it would be good, and were in favor of it. We didn't have too many people against it, because it was kind of over in an area that wasn't being developed, and we thought it'd be good for the tax roll to put their assessment on the tax roll.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
So I think it went. I think as usual, there's always somebody that doesn't care for it or doesn't have some reason for not supporting it.
Sure.
But most people thought it was good for the town.
You recall any other interesting moments at the old town hall? And what was it like working with Stan Brzezinski and the others there?
Stan Brzezinski, although he was not my party,
Right.
he always kept me informed of what's going on, or what's gonna happen, or something new that coming up at the town board meeting. He called me up and he explained to me, and this is what is being proposed, and he always kept me informed. I have to give him credit that way. He didn't try to hide.
You guys were gentlemen about these things. In other words, you know, there were,
Oh yeah.
you know, you guys being civic. Imagine that today.
I got along with him.
Right.
Okay. Didn't have, you know, sometimes if he brought up something I didn't like, I just tell him. And usually he didn't pursue it. Whatever it was.
And when was when you guys decided that it was time to build a new town hall? Essentially.
Well,
what was the wake up call that basically told you guys it's time to get into a newer facility, because the building you were in dated back to 1902.
yeah.
So.
Well, it was definitely in need, because we used to have our town board meetings upstairs in the building on the boulevard.
Why don't you tell them about
Right.
being on the revitalization committee?